Hey guys, my name's Rachel. Today I am going to be vlogging about my experience reading the oldest book on my Goodreads to be read shelf, which is The Shining by Stephen King. When I joined Goodreads back in 2012, that's 10 years ago, The Shining was the first book that I marked, and it has been in that top spot on the first page of my TBR for pretty much the entire time, which is so crazy to think about. And The Shining, the movie, has been one that I've watched with my family quite a few times. I don't know what that says about my family, that's like our family, one of our family like go-to films to watch on TV, but we've watched that several times and I enjoyed it. My dad and I watched the miniseries version before as well. We never really went back to it for a variety of reasons. Didn't care for the acting, didn't care for the effects. I do respect that that's supposed to be closer to the book. But yeah, so it's been like a long time coming. And recently I was at a bookstore with my mom and I was looking at Stephen King stuff and I was like, I'm trying to find an edition of The Shining that I like. I don't have that one. I've never read it. And she's like, wait a minute. And my mother has never judged me for not reading anything specific because she doesn't read as much as I do. I'm like one of the biggest readers in my family. And she's like, you haven't read The Shining? And she just gave me this look of intense judgment. So I figured that it was time to read The Shining. So what we're going to do today, I've got a vlog. I've only just begun to kind of cut up some footage and it's long. So we're going to do the vlog where I react to the book in steps. This is going to have spoilers literally all over it. If you're not here for spoilers, you probably want to leave. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to do my cute little review where I talk about just kind of my overall final thoughts. I'm not filming this ahead of time, so you're gonna see me in exactly the same state at the end of the video. I've already read it. I already have my thoughts, so. Cool, so he opens up with a quote from The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. King. Here we go! Page 13, and Jack Torrance is trying to argue, well, stupid people are gonna be more prone to cabin fever because they don't like reading stuff. Jack, you're stupid. And so I'm right at the beginning of chapter 2, so finishing out chapter 1, not only do we have that dumb comment from Jack Torrance, we also have Ullman like, I just want what's best for the hotel. Like, not, I just don't want you to murder your family like the last guy did, but no, I just want what's best for the hotel. Like, first chapter, and these characters are terrible people. I love how just within the first 3 chapters, you can totally tell what he's kind of setting us up for. Like, I mean, we waste no time in creating a situation and creating an atmosphere and creating characters and histories where you're like, this is not going to end well. So I read the first 50 pages of part 1 last night and I finished part 2 this morning. Altogether, I feel like this is so long-winded. My grandma did not like the book, The Shining. She liked the movie with Jack Nicholson better because she felt like it was just too long-winded. And I get why she says that, but I also totally understand why Stephen King did this, because it's kind of like
somebody said this in regards to watching the show version of The Haunting of Hill House. Like, it's one thing to have a story of a haunting in like a movie and you're with the characters for a short amount of time. So like you're kind of creeped out, but you don't really care about what's happening to the characters. But like if you spend a bunch of time with them, it makes that haunting more meaningful. It makes their struggles a lot more meaningful. And I feel like that's why he did this. Because Jack Torrance, when you just kind of glance at him, you're like, oh my God, what a mess. But then like you hear about his story with Wendy and both of their kind of points of view on like their marriage and his struggles with alcoholism and suicidal ideation and stuff like that. Like, I feel like this sense of dread. And so like even within the first few chapters, like you can see how Stephen King's putting these elements together and how like, ooh, this isn't going to be good. And now like that I've read all of part 1, it's like, oh my God, this isn't going to be good. And I'm actually like concerned about these characters. Even knowing the ending, like I feel like especially knowing the ending, I'm just kind of like, I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to. I've been trying to think about and just imagine if I didn't know this story, if I didn't know the movie, if I would have been able to figure out Red Rum. And I can kind of see how if somebody wasn't familiar with it, like maybe when it first came out, like since Jack is an alcoholic, it would make sense for it to literally be whatever bad is going to happen would have to do with red rum. Like, I don't know. I feel like that could have been the thing that threw people off. I'm not sure if Stephen King intended that or not, but yeah. I feel like people would just read that and be like, oh yeah, his dad's gonna be this crazy alcoholic at the hotel and gonna lose his mind and it's gonna be because of red rum. I don't know. It's just an idea. I'm like flying through this book and then I like forget to film anything. So to kind of recap, I made it through the chapter that's called The Shining. And I kind of forgot about how much I loved that part in the film where you see Dick and Danny talking and how this is like the first time that Danny's understood. And Dick is just such a wholesome character. I was thinking though that like Dick's like, hey, do you want to come to Florida with me? Want to come to Florida with me? Want to come to Florida with me? And then he's like, oh, can your son just help me like put some stuff in my car? And then Danny literally gets in the car. Like, I feel like in 2022, no mother would be like, yeah, go with this strange man to help him load up his car. Oh, he's in the car. It's fine. Whatever. Like, I just feels like a red flag. But fortunately, Dick is such an awesome dude. And he ends up being so important for the way that this kind of book comes together. So I liked that a lot. I liked that scene. Now I need to do some actual work. I have to fill out rubrics for my honors kids for whether or not they're going to make it into the honors group next year. So teacher stuff on spring break. We love to see it. Well, and I guess another thing too is since like I guess part of The Shining is that Danny's even able to influence his parents like at times where they're thinking about getting a divorce and he kind of shoves that idea out of them. So I wonder if Dick was just doing that with like his parents and just making it so that they're like, oh yeah, Danny can walk around with you for a minute. Danny can get into your car so you can talk to him for a second, whatever. Like, that's probably more likely what it was. So if you live in the Midwest, you might understand what I'm talking about, where like it's one of those days where it's so nice outside and it's March, so you only get so many of those, so you feel this immense pressure to just go outside and enjoy it because it's going to be gone like tomorrow. That's kind of where I'm at right now. It is like slightly chilly, but I think I might read a little bit outside today. I've made some pretty good progress. I've read like almost 80 pages of The Shining today. This is day 2 of reading. So I think I might chill out here for a little bit. the chapter The Scrapbook, and I really don't think that I need to know all of this about Derwent. I feel like we need to know stuff about him, but I have a strong feeling I don't need this level of detail, so... I also made it through the part where Danny's seeing the fire extinguisher and it looks like strangely menacing because it's like old school and looks like a snake. And like, I gotta give Stephen King some serious props because this should be a stupid scene. It should be stupid. It sounds stupid. But the way that it's written is like actually like really scary. Like I feel like this is the only time I've been afraid reading anything by Stephen King. I usually don't read his like straight up like horror stuff. The only one that I have was like Thinner, and Thinner was kind of stupid. So yeah, that was really impressive. Another thing, we're finally to the point where Jack is starting to research the Overlook and he's starting to get like really crazy. And I feel like I just wonder, I need to look up interviews because I know that Stephen King himself had struggled with things like addiction in the past, and I kind of wonder how much of his experiences influenced writing Jack Torrance. Because like just when you think that you like him and that you sympathize with him, he turns around and then he's just a jerk and scary and stuff. Like I never know how to feel about him. Trying to like hold the camera so that way you can't see all of my bangs because they're like a disaster right this second. They usually look like a mess after I take a shower. But yeah, I have not accomplished much reading today compared to my other days. I read like almost 70 pages. I just had other stuff to do. I finished my grad school application. Yay. Hopefully I'll be accepted really soon here. And then working on some other like creative stuff. So not a whole lot of reading. Oh, I also went to the gym. And what else did I do? Oh, I did laundry. Wow, I've been really productive today. But that's why I didn't read anything, so yay. Pajama and robe Rachel again, very chic. As I continue reading, one thing that keeps coming up is like comparisons like with the Donner Party, since that was in Colorado and in the mountains, and in The Shining they're in Colorado in the mountains. And even though it's like a totally different scenario, they have shelter, they have food, they're still so isolated. I think it serves not only as a reminder of like the isolation that they're basically in, but also impending doom and how people can turn on each other, and how sometimes people feel like they need to survive and stuff like that. I kind of wonder if that's where Stephen King was going with this or not. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't know. I thought that was, it's interesting that the Donner Party keeps coming up as like a comparison. Also, I just read the topiary scene. That's another scene, like kind of like with the snake one. I feel like that should be stupid, but the way that it was written, it was not stupid. It was actually like really scary. Also, how bad does Wendy's relationship with her mother have to be, where Danny's seeing visions of like all of these terrible things from Tony? Granted, he can't remember a lot of them, but he still seems to be more afraid of them moving in with Grandma than the Overlook Hotel. Like, what? But things are really picking up in the book. We're starting to really, really see the conflicts between Jack and Wendy, and Wendy's mistrust, and Jack is starting to understand that he himself is not super trustworthy either. So reading the bar scene, well, I just read the first one when he's first like in the bar and he's kind of pretending that he's talking to someone, but like he kind of feels like there's people behind him and it's kind of a moment. It reminds me so much of when I stayed at the Eisenhower Hotel in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Eisenhower representatives, if you're watching this, please don't sue me, but that place is haunted. And I feel like if you advertise that a bit more, you would have the right type of people coming to hang out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, people would enjoy the experience more than I did. That hotel was huge. Like, there was 2 buildings to it. There's like normal like hotel rooms in one building, and then there was suites in another room. And barely anyone was there. Like, it was me and my family and then like a few other families, and then that was it. Like, there was nobody. And like, they were really understaffed, and like there wasn't like a cleaning lady there. And we had a moment where when we first arrived there, our room was like actually really gross. Like, it was gross. And so my parents and I complained and we got to switch rooms because there was no cleaning lady to clean anything. So we had to just move down the hallway, and down the hallway we passed this lounge. My dad and I would go down the hallway together, and then my mom was kind of on her own, and we were just kind of running back and forth moving all of our crap because we tried to settle in, but we're like, no, it smells too bad, it's too gross. My mom found like crap on the back of the toilet and stuff, like it was nasty. So then once we get settled into the next room, mom's like, let's go to the lounge, and my dad's like, it's closed. And it was closed. Every time that my dad and I walked past it, it was like completely black inside, padlocked, and my mom's like, the lights were on and there was music playing, and we're like, we just went past it and there was not. And we went back and there was nothing. And my mom started like freaking out because she could have sworn that she saw people in there, she saw music, she saw, like, she could hear things, and I'm like, oh my god, this is just like The Shining. Because I'd seen the movie by the, like, at that point, so that was really creepy, and so I thought about that when I read this chapter. I would like to point out that my bangs are a huge mess, and I'm aware, and I'm getting them trimmed today, so they won't look like this anymore. I mean, look at this. This is just awful. I tried to curl them down, but it's just not happening. I've now made it to part 5, so I've been flying through it today. Like, today, I started at, like, page 272, and now I'm on, like, page 4 something, so that's really good progress. The topiaries. We keep having moments with the friggin' topiaries. So I mentioned before how, like, that scene where Jack is with them, and it's really scary, like, that should be like, stupid. I just feel like the topiary thing is stupid. Like, it should be, but it's not, because it's executed really well. So now Danny's had his moments with the topiaries, and it was, like, really scary. And I think I do remember topiaries being a thing in the miniseries version, and I remember thinking, this is stupid, because, like, they couldn't make that look that good. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like it's really hard to capture what's scary about this book into a film. I can understand why Stephen King wasn't happy about the film version of The Shining, because it's really different in a lot of ways. I feel like the way that the horror is built up is very different. I do like the movie, though, and I always liked the movie better than the miniseries, because even though I knew that the miniseries was closer to the book, you just can't outdo Jack Nicholson as Jack. Like, you just can't. Like, he was perfect. And that was kind of my big gripe about that. And I will always like the Shining movie. But yeah, the topiary thing is, I don't know. I thought that was really scary. How they just kind of keep creeping closer, and how you turn around and, oh, they're there. I don't know. I've got a thing with plants that look like plants that are alive, pretty much. I don't like that, like, because that's like a thing in Annihilation where, like, the plants are kind of shaped like people, and then that's really a thing that you could see in the movie version of that one as well. You could see a lot of the plants that look like human forms. Like, I don't know. Those things truly freak me out. So obviously this creeps me out in The Shining too. One thing that's also interesting, because, like, Stephen King goes into details about Jack's upbringing with his alcoholic and violent father, who obviously had a really bad temper as well. And because you have Jack's connection to his father, of, you know, their reality is just, it's different from other people's reality. They're really ragey, they're drunk. When they're not drunk, they're apparently very depressed and angry. They have this reality. And so for the longest time, Jack is the one that is having the most experiences, and then Danny. And we can kind of understand that Danny is a pretty reliable narrator because he's got a good track record with his psychic abilities. Like, he's been correct before. But I feel like it does place this shadow of a doubt into the reader's head that it could be an experience that only Danny and Jack would be having, because they have, like, there's a genetic component there. You know, they're similar. They've got like this whole like family history of having their own reality, living in anger, living in sadness. And, you know, it can kind of make you wonder, like, is this only in their heads? Why are they having the same hallucinations? So it's only like as those hallucinations start to match up, especially when Jack experiences the topiary thing and then Danny does, because Danny is more reliable than Jack. That's kind of when it's like, okay, yeah, this is totally happening. And so we just got done with the elevator moment where Jack and Wendy and Danny are all experiencing, like, they're seeing the confetti, they're seeing the mask, and they're like, literally, what did this come from? Like, now it's like, okay, yes, this is, something is wrong. And one thing that I didn't know, I didn't realize that the showdown that's about to happen is, you know, Red Rum. It's supposed to happen on December 2nd. That's literally the day after my birthday. So that's nice. This is the second book I've read this year where there's like something actively happening on my birthday in a book. So Piranesi was the other one. Piranesi ends on my birthday. So isn't that special? Of course it is. Wait a second. So I'm at the part where, so Danny's trying to call for Dick again. And we just got away from the man in a dog suit furry scenario. I'm not sure what I just witnessed there. But like, he's trying to call for Dick, and now we see a guy who, it says, hold on, what does it say? A huge creature dressed in white. Its prehistoric club raised over its head. Like, I don't, maybe I'm stretching here, but Jack's dad wore white a lot because he was a nurse, and he was really like, my cat's looking at something. He was like really big and tall, and then like the voice is kind of familiar, but kind of not. So like, is this an apparition of Jack's dad that Danny's seeing, even though we never met him? Is that what this is? I'm so confused. 75% the way through. I'm about to finish, and it is just simply a damn shame that The Shining is yet another one of those movies where the one black guy dies when the one black guy in the book saves everybody.
All right, welcome to the kind of review section, or like my final thoughts, whatever you want to call it. I am honestly really surprised by how much I loved The Shining. It was literally so good. I loved the balance between the gradual creepiness and the introspection and the reflectiveness on each character and their lives and their struggles. I feel like this was really well done. I love the internal and the external plot, and seeing how they kind of mixed together at the end was fabulous. I felt super engaged pretty much the entire time. Even though some parts were drawn out a little bit more, that was fine because I feel like it pays off in the end because you're super attached to the characters. I think it's a great example of how horror as a genre works. I'm from Ohio. I can't say the word horror. I'm just going to say it the way I say it, which is horror. Sounds great. I think it's a great example of like how horror can effectively work when you have a solid internal plot with your characters, like real problems, and then an external plot, which is like the haunting. Hi, Sunny. Um, I think it's also a great example of how we can start off with this kind of feeling of dread. Stephen King kind of like lets us kind of know into it. We can kind of infer that this is probably going to be a really bad situation, but the horror itself is really built up gradually and just kind of gets creepier and creepier. And I think that that's really how you effectively do it. You don't want to start off too strong. It's kind of like the logic behind a lot of Shakespearean plays. So Shakespeare will kill multiple characters in a play, but a lot of times it's just really quick, or it happens like on the side, or the audience can't really see it because he's saving a bigger murder moment for the end and he wants it to be more shocking by the time that we get to it. I feel like the same logic applies to pretty much any sort of horror or action book or film. I do like it a lot better than the movie, I will say. The only thing is I really wish that we could have gotten a version that was close to the actual book with Jack Nicholson. That would have been great. And ideally, like, if you ever look up what happened to Shelley Duvall on the set of The Shining, that was terrible. She was so mistreated by the director. Even other cast members have commented on how he basically treated her like actual garbage, so that's also not cool. I think it's also interesting, well, I think it's also very effective that the danger level builds up as well. So things start off, seemingly harmless, or like, oh, that was spooky, but it's harmless, and then at the end everyone is in actually like a lot of danger. So at the point of me filming this wrap up, it's actually been a few minutes since I've finished reading the book. I haven't really had time to film this section, as well as just like cutting up the footage that I have. So finally I have a moment to do that. And so in the past, my top 3 Stephen King has been number 3, The Langoliers, number 2, Under the Dome, and number 1, The Stand. And then I also really love his writing memoir on writing. Now, The Shining has broken into my top 3. Like, I really didn't expect it to do that. So now, my number 3 is Under the Dome. My number 2 is The Shining. And I feel like The Stand is always going to be number 1 because literally it's The Stand. It's iconic. I love it. And The Shining's iconic too. I think it just kind of depends on what you as a person gravitate towards with Stephen King, because Stephen King writes so many different genres. So if horror is your favorite thing, you will probably like Stephen King's horror. If you are like me and your favorite things are like science fiction and fantasy, you're probably going to like something like The Stand a little bit better. I do love horror, don't get me wrong, but I'm a sucker for some good sci-fi and fantasy, and The Stand blends those two elements together absolutely perfectly. Definitely one thing also that The Shining accomplishes is it's easy to really root for, but also completely despise Jack. Like, you see him as a person, so you want him to get better, but then at the same time he does terrible things, and you're just like, oh my god, I hate you. But yeah, I finally read The Shining at the ripe age of 26 after having it on my Goodreads to read shelf for literally 10 years. So that in itself is a big accomplishment. I'm very happy that I knocked this off the TBR, finally. As far as the next Stephen King that I plan to read, because I've read some of his stuff, I've not read all of it. I don't plan to read all of it because I feel like Stephen King is one of those writers, well, maybe he's even the only writer that I know of. It almost feels like he writes about every idea that comes into his brain, which I'm not going to like all of them. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of depends on what you're into, like I said. I think that the next one for sure that I would love to read from him is Bag of Bones. I've heard that that one is really excellent, and just based off the description, it sounds like something that I would be into. And I know he's coming out with one this year as well, Fairy Tale. I think that that one looks really interesting too. It sounds like he wrote that one during the pandemic to make himself feel better. And that's a big mood right there. Yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you are a The Shining stan, let me know in the comments. If you didn't care for it that much, also let me know in the comments. I will not be offended if you didn't like this book. We are all different, and we all have differing opinions, especially when it comes to Stephen King's body of work, because the dude does have some range, let's be real. Alright, hope y'all are doing well. Bye!